Alright guys, so we're gonna be watching this video called Comedians Won't Stop Trashing Comedians Who Trash Comedians. Now, what a very funny little title there by 2lazy2try, of course, and we're gonna just jump in the video. I have not seen it at all, so it's gonna be new to me, new to you, maybe if you haven't seen it at all. Let's just start it.
I have a problem with everyone going on podcasts and talking shit about everyone. It sucks, dude. It just sucks. Like when I see some comic go out and talk about some other show that a comic's on, or somebody's bashing another comic that they came up with, or they're talking about how they don't kill Tony.
Chris, name no good comics are doing that. I haven't seen one like legit comic talk shit on another one like
there are no
in public.
All right, so we have Brendan Schaub, Erik, Griffin, and Elia trashing comedians for trashing comedians. And the lack of self-awareness here is amazing. Like Brendan says there's no good comics that talk shit about other comics. Well, Chris is talking shit about comics. And Chris, he also says he doesn't like when comics talk shit about Kill Tony. But the whole premise of that podcast is comedians roasting struggling comedians.
You know what's funny about this whole thing that they're talking about, like Elia and Brendan Schaub of all people, is that the reason why they can't talk shit is because if they do manage to talk shit about whoever or whomever, whichever comedian, there's so much dirt, there's so much, a lot of stuff on them that you don't even have to focus on the comedy to make fun of Brendan or Elia, for example. And these guys know that they cannot easily or maybe sort of go the same route as any other comedian that wants to critique somebody else, a fellow comedian, basically, because what's so funny about it is like they're just speaking their mind. Everybody just speaks their mind, but all of a sudden now, no good comedian speaks their mind. That's crazy, because if no good comedian or whoever, or a comedian that you think that's very low rated, if they talked about anybody else like that in that sort of way, a lot of people are not gonna care who that guy is or what their opinion is about them, because they're like, yeah, I mean, but who are you to talk about these popular comedians? But usually it is the popular comedians talking about other popular comedians that are not really so popular publicly, and also, stand-up comedy wise, Brendan is easily one of the biggest targets, and Elia as well too, based off of his prior specials too as well.
So apparently making fun of Tony, one of the most successful comedians right now, is out of line, but Tony making a career out of trashing no-name comics who are barely scraping by is fine, and people like Rogan regard him as one of the best roasters alive. And it's funny, they act like it's better to be punching down for some reason, because I guess if you're trashing somebody doing better than you, that means you're just jealous. Like Chris complains about comedians who make a living talking shit. He's like, that's all they do, and they have to keep it up because that's the only thing they're good at, which is so ironic because it sounds like he's describing Tony. But then right after that, as an example, he brings up how he heard some no-name comics making fun of Kill Tony on a podcast. So Tony can make a living and become one of the biggest comics by humiliating open micers. That's fair game. But then when open micers make fun of him, that's too far. Also,
this is just sad. Like, it's always been said that comedians, stand-up comics are so sensitive, man. I guess maybe you don't think that, oh yeah, because they're not comedians, it's not their profession, why should they be making fun of us? Is a ridiculous thing to say. It's all good for you, the comedian, the professional, to make fun of anybody else, but when it comes down to you, we can't do that because of some sort of dumb reason, right? That's so stupid.
So Chris brings up how Bill Burr is above criticizing comedians, but he's been calling out comedians a lot recently. And it's funny, the one time he was on Kill Tony years ago, he hated it because of what I just described here. He felt like Tony was punching down too much, and he just thought it was cringy and lowbrow humor. So he kept calling him out on it. So if Chris really hates comedians talking shit about other comedians and talking down to them, you would think he would hate Kill Tony.
Well, right. There's look.
Nobody that you respect.
No, you can argue that, obviously, there are comics that are above it. Like Bill Burr, Chris Rock, the big guys, but they're above that. But there are people who are.
That's just like, yeah, let's make exceptions, right? Because obviously if they were to, in a way, maybe hopefully they don't attack me back, right? Because of my prior history. And like the whole thing about this whole conversation is super obvious that they're just easy pickings for everybody else, but they just can't roast anybody. They just can't. They're just in this position where they just have to take it, because if they were to start criticizing anybody, I'm pretty sure prior to what happened to Chris D'Elia's career, he would be making fun of people. But now, right, I mean, like, obviously one of the biggest ones was like him making fun of Justin Bieber, right? And he had no problem with that until recently. The whole space has changed, and now we're above that. We just can't really be punching down. And if the only people that are allowed is Bill Burr, or maybe they will put Anthony Jeselnik or whoever it might be, because they know if they get their sights on them, then it's just let them have it, because you cannot engage in that conversation with any of those guys that are really pretty much basically like, yeah, these guys are the top tier of it,
that are not above that, who made their living that way, who made their living talking shit, who made their living getting clicks. They're not. They're the people that... Isn't
it funny too that Brendan Schaub, you can kind of say that he made a living off of criticism and talking shit, because he would analyze fights, or he does analyze fights, but all of a sudden now it's like you're not allowed to because it's comedy.
What are they going to do? They can't not do that anymore. But I mean, I saw a clip the other day with these comics that were, they were not well known, but they were talking shit about Kill Tony, and it's like
hilarious.
Just,
why do you care, Chris? If they're not well known, why do you care? Right? That's also another thing about it. Why should you care? They're nobodies, right?
Why? Like, for what? For what?
Because he's the big dog.
I know, but it's like...
when you get to a certain level, like, people are gonna take shots. It's like, it's a weird comparison, but it's like I'll talk shit about the UFC. I love the UFC, but I talk shit about them because they're so massive.
I understand.
Like, they're so big. Like,
I understand.
It's just what you do.
It's different when it's a company, when they're talking about actual people.
It's like, Brendan, don't pretend like you've never not talked about anybody that's not UFC, like a lower tier like wrestling fighting promotion, or a lower tiered fighter, right? And you criticize them. I'm sure you have. I'm sure of that. Like, there's no way that you haven't. And then you've also like made fun of like celebrities' kids, and like, you're not one to speak about this at all.
People like comedians, it's like that shit affects people.
Yeah, so once again, these comedians prove they're the most sensitive people alive, and Chris just sounds so confused here. Like, Chris thinks talking shit about struggling comics is fine, but if you say something bad about successful comics, then it's too far. And Tony, he was a struggling comic talking shit about other comics at one point. I mean, he's like the prime example of what Chris is talking about here. And obviously comedians have no problem making fun of other celebrities. Like this person says, this podcast, they spent a ton of time talking shit about people. But then, of course, when it's directed at them, then it's too far. And also the best part about Chris defending Kill Tony is the fact that, like this comment points out, they made fun of Chris and Brendan on Kill Tony multiple times. So it's just pathetic what's going on here. I mean, Chris must be desperately trying to get on the show or something, because to go out of your way and defend them and be like, why are so many comedians trashing that show? I hate comedians talking shit about each other when they have no problem talking shit about him is just cuck behavior. So I don't know what's going on here, but apparently Erik thinks all these comedians trashing each other is bad for the brotherhood.
We're not even talking about his special. All we're talking about is like what he does, what he says.
He's just salty.
And I think that's
He's just sucks. Salty.
He's got salty, Brendan. You guys are this whole room is like, it smells like the ocean, right? That's how salty it is right now. Like, in this whole scenario that you guys are talking about, you just sound super bitter and super sour about shit because you guys suck. You do, and that's why you like retaliate. If somebody talks shit to you, retaliate, respond. Why can't you? Right? Why?
I don't think it's good for the brotherhood. I don't like that shit.
Yeah, it makes
Brotherhood. What brotherhood do you speak
There's
of?
no
The one that
brotherhood, yeah.
kicked my friends out of the brotherhood?
There's no
The one that kicked my friend Chris and Brian out? What fucking brotherhood?
What? Wait. What are you talking about too, Brendan? You mean like, oh yeah, let's invite these people to my podcast, right? Because prior to that, yeah, sure, you had a good reputation before the allegations of Brian Callen and you bullying Bobby Lee and suing people and all these other things that you have had, you know, in history of like it all comes down to you and how you handle your life, and these are the consequences of like your actions, and that's why the reason why like people don't want to, you know, mess with you anymore. They don't want to invite you anymore. It's because of you guys do that shit. It's your guys' fault. Don't blame it on everybody else that's like, oh, they don't want to invite us because we're kicked out of the brotherhood. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, weird. There isn't any, but you know, whatever. I mean,
And I would like to hear who Brendan thinks is the gatekeeper of that brotherhood, because obviously wouldn't it be Rogan? And Brendan actually has been taking some subtle shots at him recently. I think he's kind of getting resentful towards him. I've been covering that over on Patreon. Like, also hear Brendan talks about how there's no community anymore, and Chris and Erik seem to agree. And Brendan kind of blames it on Rogan for leaving LA. He said that kind of ruined things. Like, Brendan always talks about how much he misses those days before everyone moved to Austin. He said that was the golden age.
That's the funny too about this podcast. It's like these, except for maybe like Erik, like these guys, Chris and Brendan, are the most controversial dudes out there. And like for them to say like, oh yeah, like the brotherhood, Brendan, your connection to the brotherhood was Joe Rogan, and you've managed to mess that up as well.
And he's always reminiscing about that. But obviously Rogan would say the opposite. He would say there's more of a community now than ever, and this is the golden age of comedy. So it's funny they're talking about how much they hate comedians being bitter and jealous, because Brendan just sounds like a bitter, failed comic. Like, I'm sure he blames his career falling off on Rogan leaving LA and Rogan not sticking up for Chris D'Elia and Brian Callen right when they got canceled. I mean, Rogan will have Brian on now, but for years he didn't have him on, and he still won't have Chris on at all. So Brendan brags about how he's the only loyal person left because he stuck by them.
Yeah, like the reason why too, Joe, like even still at his dumbest, he understands like marketing and promoting, and people that sponsor him obviously are like probably telling him behind the scenes like, hey, don't bring on these people. Our sponsors don't want that, and they're not gonna accept you, you know, inviting them. Like, I'm pretty sure, you know, when the whole Alex Jones thing came out, or prior to when that whole issue happened, he didn't invite Alex Jones for quite a while, until like when he brought him with Tim Dillon and whoever else, right? And I'm sure that you know that podcast wasn't sponsored because of sponsors not wanting to, because of how, you know, controversial he is. And you know, that's mainly like the point of, or sort of the understanding of all these podcasts is like, yeah, sure, you know, we love doing podcasts, but we have to get paid, and I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan will not be happy to not get paid because of one of his sponsors not approving said guest, and it happens all the time, right? Like, and that's what happened with Brendan and Brian, because I remember Brendan saying like, yeah, you know, our sponsors didn't want Brian to come in, and so I just had to kick him out, because if I were to invite him, I also would be suffering, right? So there's that tit for tat shit.
No, I'm scared. I talked to them and they're like, hey, the sponsors won't do this unless Brian takes a leave of absence. I was like, okay, cool, but I'm not doing without Brian. Then like, well, then there's no show. So I called Brian, like, here's our options. We stop doing it till it's safe. Who knows? Could be a year, could be never. Yeah. Or I just hold down the fort and I'll find people to fill in, and we'll still be able to pay you, and we'll keep things rolling. We're going to take a hit, but at least the show continues.
Yeah.
When it turns around on them, they're like, why do they do this to us? They're so unfair. It's like, shut up, dude. You know why.
I mean, social influence is everything. It drives engagement, it drives revenue, and people don't want to anything that they think is going to take away from the money that they're going to make. They're going to put up the tents and be like, nope, that's it. It's just
They're going to
about
protect
me.
it.
Yeah,
they're going to protect it at all costs.
Yeah, at all costs.
Even if it means
man.
losing their friends, whatever. Whatever.
So
it's all good.
I mean,
Yeah. Hopefully I find that clip for you guys when Brendan basically is like just, you know, sort of talking from all sides of his mouths, you know, like this whole thing of like, you know, the sponsors and everybody, they don't want us, but.
And Brian,
That was bad.
what's worse, getting your lids done and it not doing shit, or having to step down from the pod for a while?
Well, definitely having to step down for the pod for a year.
That was rough.
That was tough. Rough. It wasn't my lids.
But when it came down to Brendan, he didn't do that. He told Brian to take a hike or you know walk.
Like, hey, the sponsors won't do this unless Brian takes a leave of absence. I was like, okay, cool, but I'm not doing without Brian. Then like, well, then there's no show.
You know, walk for a bit and then come back later until, you know, the whole thing clears up. You know, basically.
I always say, like, I feel like it sucks that loyalty is not something that people value.
Yeah, no, not at all. And it's weird too, because
except for your boy here.
Yeah. Oh, there's a few.
Okay. Why? This is another problem with Brendan, man. Such a habitual liar there, man. Like, hopefully he's joking. It would be more funnier if this is sort of sarcastic.
There's a few. There's a few. No, there are a few.
Oh yeah. Who else, Chris? Who else?
There are people.
Name.
Well, I don't know if they want to speak of them. But.
Yeah. Remember, guys, Fighter and the Kids. The two black co-hosts that Brendan brought in because he couldn't do a show with Brian Callen because of what? Right? I don't know. I don't remember.
In the spotlight. In the spotlight.
Well, but that but nobody actually but that's a thing where nobody cares.
Do you know anyone who's doing shit that doesn't get this type of hate? Do you know anybody? Name one. I can't name
one
one.
way or another. Yeah, from one way or another. Yeah.
Name one dude who's actually.
Yeah, no, but
making
it's
money.
different when it comes from the fucking actual community. You know what I'm saying? It's different when it comes from the community.
Yeah, what community? You guys keep saying this community.
Right.
Community
Well,
full of cucks,
what's supposed to be the
soft
community?
people.
Well, it was. I've been around for a while. Yeah, there was a community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
I thought at least.
Yeah, exactly. I think.
For a while, this whole community or whatever they're speaking of, they always talk shit to each other. They always have. I have freaking prior videos of everybody in this whole room getting a piece of shit getting thrown at them, right? Erik Griffin by Adam from Workaholics. He mentioned that, you know, Erik Griffin was an asshole.
I'ma say the name, no, because Erik is. I've become really good friends with Erik.
Go off.
But Erik is a total. You know,
he's super nice.
He's super nice. He's super nice. Right. But when you're coming up in stand up, he was just like really mean.
What?
Yeah,
he was mean.
That
is not what I expected.
Are you saying like was he like checking you kind of thing, like that kind of comedy guy? Very nice, like just trying to like push you just to test you.
Yeah, no, he's like the sage old vet,
right?
And he would always treat me like the rookie.
You know, Brendan mentioned the first time he met Erik, he was an asshole towards him. Chris Elia, a long history of being an asshole as well. But all of a sudden now, you know, they're different because they're dads or some shit. I don't know.
I believe that the internet helped to destroy that, and
for sure.
you know,
but also, Erik, I agree. There was a community. There was a community, but before Rogan left, like those whatever 5 to 7 years. It was the golden age, right?
Yeah. And they also go off on Marc Maron and call him jealous and bitter, which I mean he kind of is. But they act like him criticizing other comedians is just completely out of line. Well, that's exactly what they are doing. And Erik,
look, I think with Marc, why would he be jealous? What is he jealous about? Maybe bitter, you know, bitter old man, but jealous of who? Of what? And Marc Maron's career as an actor and as a stand-up comic is pretty well regarded. Nobody's ever, you know, trashing him over those things. So maybe just bitter, I would say, but jealous? What is he jealous of? What is he jealous of? Of who? And of whom?
Erik also complains about how Marc and Anthony Jeselnik act like comedy should be a certain way, but he's also acting like comedy should be a certain way where comedians don't make fun of each other. I mean, I don't agree with everything Marc says, but I think it's better to have comedians being honest about what they think of each other and the state of comedy, which is what Erik and Chris are doing here, but also at the same time, they're acting like they're above it. And even though I think they sound kind of confused, I encourage it. I mean, just talk shit at this point. Who cares? Because we all know they're doing it behind the scenes anyway. But they're in a weird position where they obviously want to call out comedians who trash the Rogan sphere, but they know Rogan doesn't really like drama and comedians shitting on each other, which is kind of ironic because the biggest moment of Rogan's comedy career was him publicly calling out another comedian, Carlos Mencia, and destroying his career.
They know they're bad. They know it's scummy work, but it's the only way they can make money.
Well, no, I don't know. I think that some people take that.
The only way, guys, the only way, Brendan, like, you guys have to understand too, like, the way that these guys talk is just cope. Yeah, the reason why they're just always talking shit about us is because they're gonna make money from it. You know who makes money from talking shit is me. That's it. All these guys, they make money off of their stand-up comedy and everything else they do. You guys too. Like, your fucking show that I used to watch, you guys would make fun of like your fans and people that, you know, used to actually like you and would engage with you some of the time, and you know, your shitty history, you guys used to do that too, but now you guys lost that power.
Take this weird high ground. That's my problem with like what Marc Maron does. Is like
taking the high ground,
this moral high ground, and this like a genius complex that some of them have.
To be like,
Jeselnik's got that. He's got this genius complex that it's like, well, this is what comedy's supposed to be, and Marc's telling me like, man, I just care about comedy.
Jeselnik's different than
Jeselnik criticizes the problems that comedy has. You know, I don't think he'll criticize anybody if they're funny and they're successfully funny. Like, why is he gonna talk shit about that? He only talks shit when people are not doing great or he sees something stupid, right? Which is mostly these guys.
Marc. I like Jeselnik. Jeselnik's different than Marc. Marc's a salty bitch. Jeselnik will do it like when he goes after Rogan or something. It's still in a funny way, and it's kind of his thing, right? Being kind of that asshole.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
I don't mind Jeselnik.
I don't know. I just
Is Brendan scared or something?
He's my friend.
I like
Tell him to his
Jeselnik.
face.
No, yeah.
I don't like this.
Yeah,
I don't like
Jeselnik.
that shit.
Personally, I like Jeselnik whenever I see him.
I just don't like that. I don't like that
Jeselnik's
shit.
awesome. He's a dark
When I see him, yeah, we're good. We're good. Hey, Jeselnik, please don't make fun of me, please.
comic, though.
No,
That's
I
his
know,
thing, but it's not Marc's
I
thing.
know, but when you carry it over into a podcast saying,
Yeah.
fucking this person sucks, and you don't even know,
Yeah.
Maron doesn't even know that Matt has an act. Like, Matt has an act.
Yeah.
You don't have to think it's
That
funny.
shit's crazy.
But
That shit's crazy.
So I don't know, man. I'm just saying it sucks.
You don't think he knows? Of course he does. Marc talks shit and is educated about it.
Well, you know the thing.
When I see comics getting dragged or whoever getting dragged, it just fucking always sucks, man. It always sucks. Even if I don't like them, I'm like, it sucks.
Listen, Maron's a soft cuck. Maron would be like, bro.
What the hell? Hopefully Maron does not hear you say that, bud.
You know, come on, man. And I guarantee if Matt came at him with like, bro, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, he said to
I
me-
guarantee you Maron would back off.
Well, he said to me,
Guaranteed.
he said, just walked up to me. He was like, look, man, I'm not jealous. I'm not bitter. At worst, I'm old.
Bullshit.
And I said to him, Marc, if it looks like a duck.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have to look at what it comes off as, yeah.
And they spent a lot of time defending Matt Rife and Jeff Dye, who are two comedians Marc was trashing during podcasts he was on. But they didn't say anything about the bit Marc did about Theo during his special, which is interesting because that got the most attention. That went the most viral out of all the people he was making fun of. And Theo used to be on this podcast when it was King and the Sting. So for them not to defend him was kind of strange. And I don't think I've seen any other comic
Well, it's not strange because Theo got himself out of that podcast because of the history of Chris D'Elia. That's why. Like, he didn't feel comfortable with him. Like you haven't heard as of recent that, oh yeah, we're cool. Me and Theo and also Brendan too, longtime friend Brendan Schaub. He's not cool with Theo recently. Like, that's why they're not defending Theo. And also they don't speak about the thing that they're making fun of, right? Because they can't really like respond to that. They can't rebuttal it because Marc is probably right of that. Marc is probably right and his criticism is valid at times. I would say, like, I haven't heard every criticism of Marc, right? But I'm sure whenever he does put his sights on somebody, then he will have an accurate estimate of what he's making fun about them for.
Defend him, but let me know what you guys think about it all down in the comments. And if you want to hear about how Brendan's move to Texas has just been a disaster and how he might be slowly turning on Rogan and Theo, make sure you check out the Patreon. You can also hear about how a couple months ago Rogan...
All right, guys, so I will end this here. Let me know what you guys thought about this, just to kind of also, you know, give you my final thoughts on it. It's just so stupid for these guys to just talk, I don't know, what are they like sort of saying, like, hey, don't talk about us this way, stop attacking your fellow brotherhood of comedians, we shouldn't be attacking each other, we should attack everybody else, right? Because in our, like, as workers, as fellow workers, we shouldn't be attacking each other, right? We should attack anybody else that's not us. You know, what does that say about them? Which is, you know, it's a silly thing to say. And for them to, like I said before, like, these guys talk so much shit about anybody else, and they would talk even more shit prior to their shady history. And now when they don't have that, they just don't have that skill or talent anymore, or they're sort of I guess barred from it, they're like, please stop, because we can't just respond to shit like that, because you guys will just easily bring up our prior history of shady shit. You know, so like, this is, I think that's why the whole thing about it is so sort of silly and sad, because of how they just suck at comedy. Like, if you guys were good at comedy, or you guys are good at comedy and rebuttals, then have at it. But it just gives it away that you guys are just complaining about it and not actually just fighting it, or, you know, responding back, because you guys suck at it. You know, you just suck. And at times too, even Tony Hinchcliffe, when he gets attacked pretty good, he's like, all right, you got me, okay, you know, fuck, right? But with you guys, you guys are so sad, man. And yeah, man, I'll see you guys for another one. Like and subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you guys for another video. Bye bye.